pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks. Okay, thank you for coming. We all know why we're here tonight. We're here to interview our first finalist for the Attleboro Superintendent of Schools job, Mr. Anthony Azar. In a minute, I will be going down to get him. The format's kind of set up. Mr. Azar is going to come in, give us all a brief description on himself after I introduce the committee to him. Then the school committee, every school committee member will be asking a question, and Dr. Azar will have about roughly 7 minutes to answer that question before we move on to the next one. And then we're going to give Mr. Azar about 15 minutes at the end to give some closing statements to the committee, and then we'll be adjourning. So again, I'm going to head down now and get Mr. Azar, and I will be right back in the room. Thank you, Brenda. I should give notice that this meeting is being electronically recorded. Thank you very much for that, Brenda. On behalf of the Attleboro School Committee, I'd like to welcome Dr. Anthony Azar. How are you, Dr. Mann?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. First, I'd like to introduce you to the Attleboro School Committee. Our Ward 5 representative, Ms. Franzito.
Hello.
Our Ward 2 representative, Mr. William Lawson.
Good evening.
Our Ward 6 representative, Mr. Ken's parent. Our at-large representative and the executive secretary, Ms. Barbara Perot.
Hello.
To my left, we have our Ward 4 representative and the vice chairperson, Ms. Brenda Furtado.
Welcome. Hi.
Our at-large school committee member, Mr. David Murphy. And our Ward 3 representative, Mr. Christopher O'Neill.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So again, welcome and congratulations on being named one of the finalists for the Attleboro Superintendent of Schools jobs. And if you could just give a brief description of yourself to the committee, we'd appreciate that.
Certainly, thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank the Superintendent Search Committee for doing their due diligence and bringing this process to where we are tonight. I'd like to thank the chairperson as well for keeping me and the other candidate posted on the process. No surprises, which is very nice to know, and to lead up and make it very comfortable to be here. Also like to thank Judy for her welcoming for 2 times now, and I thank you for that, and the public that's here tonight as well, thank you. As far as an introduction to who I am, my name is Anthony Azar. I live in the town of Rehoboth. It wasn't too bad of a drive coming here this evening. And I have been in education, this is my 30th year. I'm currently the administrator for curriculum and instruction for the City of New Bedford Public Schools. What I'd like to tell you briefly, though, about me and what I'm all about, really, and I'm sure this resonates with a number of people sitting here and in the audience tonight, it's about family. My family means a great deal to me. I have a daughter who's currently a 9th grader, and I have a son who is currently a 1st grader. And I say that with a little smile because just a very brief story for you. We were at the library, the Blanding Library in Rehoboth, not too long ago, and there was a reading session going on. And it was the first time I had gone. My wife had taken him. It was my turn to take him, which was a lot of fun. But the person who was running the show that evening said, "Oh, Donnie, you brought your grandfather with you." And I at first I was like, "Whoa, wow, okay." And Donnie laughed because my father's still living. And he said, "Boy, Pa would be insulted by that," so, which is my father. I said, "Well, how do you like that?" But it was an endearing thing, and my wife tried to kind of calm it all down. But I bring it up because I have been blessed with seeing, my 2 children, both preemies, by the way, grow to be successful in school. And whenever you're in education, you think, yes, about kids. I mean, the common ground for all of us is children. And my 2 children have done well in school. And that makes me work even harder to make sure other kids do well in school as well. Being in the position that I'm in New Bedford, delivering instruction, curriculum for almost 12,000 students, I feel blessed also in that regard. So family is very important. My wife's a school teacher as well in Taunton. So when we gather around the dinner table, which is not as often as we would like because of all the responsibilities of going to Boy Scouts and camp and theater, which my daughter's involved in now, we talk about our day and what our day was like in school. So we all have stories. My son, my daughter from high school, from elementary school. My wife's a middle school teacher in Taunton. But that's kind of like an oxymoron because the middle school in Taunton, she's an 8th grade teacher, and that's in the high school, so grades 8 through 12. So we spend a lot of time talking about our school day and talking about the things that mean most to us, about giving us opportunities. And that's really important. So I see that on a day-to-day basis talking to my family. One of the more important reasons why I applied to Attleboro, I have a personal and a professional connection to the district. My daughter has been involved in some elementary school art programs over the years. She's been involved in the Oak Knoll Conservation Area, numerous things that go on in there. She's had some art exhibits with the Smarts Collaborative downtown in Attleboro Museum. And they are members of the Rehoboth Minutemen, and they march in the parade. And of course, I drop them off at the beginning, and someone's got to pick them up at the end. So we spend quality time in Attleboro. And La Salette Shrine was something that I grew up with, and that's just a continuation. And of course, Blizz Dairy, no doubt, gives Newport Creamery a run for its money. So, so there are some personal connections there. From a professional standpoint, I have been a teacher for a number of years. I was an assistant principal. I was a principal as well. I was an instructional supervisor. Currently an administrator now at central office level. I have seen at all the different levels, what it is, what good teaching looks like. As a middle school principal, I saw kids coming in from elementary school, so we had transitional programs set up I was in 4th through 8th grade middle school and 5 through 8th grade. So we had transitional programs set up for kids. We also had transitional programs set up from 8 to 9. So that transition piece I'm very, very clear on as well. From a professional standpoint and a political standpoint, as you know, I was a former state senator. So my affiliation with the school committee is very simplistic. It's, I want to make sure your phone doesn't ring in a negative way. I'm a very loyal individual. What I tried to do when I was an assistant principal for my principal was to make sure that, you know how the buck stops at a particular desk? I always thought it stopped at mine when I dealt with something. So when it got to the next level, all the I's were dotted, the T's were crossed, the paperwork was in place. So when you had something in front of you, whether it was the assistant principal when I was a teacher, that everything was in order, paperwork was in order, what I thought was the right decision to make and why and the rationale behind it. So I do know that you do represent your constituencies. I do understand that process. I do understand the relationship from a political standpoint of where the superintendent is and where the school committee is. And I'm very collaborative in nature, and hopefully that will come out when the questions are asked and answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the first question of our night is going to be asked by Ms. Brenda Furtado.
Dr. Azar, in your first year as a superintendent, how might you go about determining the strengths and weaknesses of our school district? What specific steps would you take?
One of the first things that I've already taken, your community has spent an inordinate amount of time in building to this process. And there have been numerous focus groups, stakeholders, meetings, input. And I think it would be a disservice not to look at what has been developed already and look at that and follow that in my first year, to use that as a blueprint, sort of say. Also, one of the more important things that I would envision to do within the first year, actually within the first couple of weeks, in the first week or so, is to work with the leadership team in Attleboro School Department to find out what it is at the grassroots level. And a lot of that came out already. There's a number of things that I saw in some of the writings that there's a lot of systems and operational things already in place. And I believe that I have that experience that I can bring it to the next level. So it would be to sit with the stakeholders, to replicate some of the things you've already done, to bring those people in a forum, group setting, one-on-one, to be available and accessible. So those are the types of things that I would choose to do.
Great. Thank you very much.
Next question by Ms. Barbara Crow.
Hi, Dr. Azar.
Hello?
My question is, if a parent has tried to resolve an issue at the school level through the proper chain of command and is not satisfied with the action taken or response received and comes to the superintendent's office unannounced or without an appointment, how would you respond to the situation and the parent's concerns?
A number of times at different levels, this obviously has happened, whether it was at the teaching level, the assistant principal level, and so on and so forth. Very simply put, if it was unannounced, I was in the middle of a meeting, I would always make sure that that person is met with a smile, that person is met with a feeling of a comfort level, because they are coming in because they're upset. And you don't want to make them more upset if you put up you meaning the office, myself, whomever, if you put up more barriers, it's just going to make the situation more intense, and unfortunately you can't get anywhere under those circumstances. If I'm available, I will absolutely see the person. I will sit them down, I will listen to them, and one of the more important things is not just listen, but hear. There's a lot of times where you can listen, but if you're not hearing what the person's saying, nothing gets resolved. So I would sit down with them, find out what's the concerns. They would share with me. Through my due diligence, I would ask, did you go to the building level? Did you talk? Usually if it's a classroom situation that evolved and it was teacher related, did you talk to the teacher? Always bring it back, the protocol, just like, that we have to respect what the protocols are. Teacher, student, parent, did you sit down? Yes, I did. I met with the parent, didn't work out. I felt that my needs were not being met. So the next step, did you go to the principal of the building? Yes, I did, but Dr. Azar, I also went to the guidance counselor. So, there's a back and forth, and they even throw that in. It wasn't resolved, so then I did go to the assistant principal, the principal, but at that point, we just could not resolve it. Hence, That's why I'm here with you. What I would do is listen. I would share with them that I would like them to backtrack, because at the superintendent level, the next step for me would be to have a discussion with the principal. Have that discussion, ask the individual to give me at least 24 hours to work on it, depending on the time frame, what time of day, that type of thing. So to make it timely, to give them an opportunity to say, okay, there's a timetable now, so it's not open-ended, and it's not like, well, yeah, next week, whatever, because that's going to set the individual off even further, because if you're not receptive, then it's just going to, you know how it's going to work, and then your phone's going to ring. And that's not what should be happening. We need to take care of it where we are at our level. So I have a discussion with the principal. Principal says, you know, I sat down with the parent and explains to me, and it sounds reasonable. Oh, gee, that sounds reasonable. That's something I would have done. And then they share with me what happened. More than likely, it could be a bullying incident. It could be something like that wasn't handled properly. So we would look at the protocols, and did we follow this? Did we follow, whatever the protocol is in the district, in the building? Did we follow all of that? Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Then, within that 24-hour time frame, I would have the parent come back in. Mrs. So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, I had an opportunity to talk to the principal, and what they shared with me is this. Now, the parent could easily say, yeah, that's true, they did sit with me, yes, it was amicable, but I just wasn't satisfied. Then my next question, what would it take to resolve this in your eyes? And then they would give me, please do X, Y, and Z. Then if it's doable and manageable, okay, that's reasonable. If it's, let's think about it a little bit more, and then I would go back and have that meeting with the principal. If it was such a situation that I felt was a legality, hopefully not criminal in nature, because by that time it should have been taken care of, then I would have a meeting with the teacher, the parent. By that time, obviously there'd be a union situation to protect the rights of the teacher, just in case it went. I mean, it can go in all different directions. Or, if you treat people with the respect that they look for, you can pretty much take care of any situation right there and then. So that's how I would handle that.
Our next question is by Mr. Ken Parent.
In Attleboro, the city government has historically provided only the minimum amount of funds as required by the state to our school system. With this in mind, every year is a budgetary challenge. What experience have you had making the tough decisions and working within a budget? What skills have you employed to weather difficult times and still meet the needs of students? Knowing the city government has authority to give beyond the minimum amount required by the state, when would you feel it would be prudent to ask for additional funds?
Most of my background, and as you can see by my resume, I've been in districts that have had those situations develop and evolve. One of the things that I learned early on was that sometimes we don't always use our resources as best as fit. And not too long ago in one of my districts, what we incorporated, what I brought to the table was, it was called the Student Collaborative Network. The Student Collaborative Network was as follows. We would look at any and all resources within the district. And depending on what the situation was there something that we could utilize instead of calling an outside consultant for professional development? Did we build capacity within the district? Are there teachers that could do and more than likely the answer is yes, could they do the professional development? That's what we're working on right now in the district that I'm in New Bedford. We don't have money. I mean, it's clear, it's publicized. We didn't budget $3 million for positions that we have involved right now. We utilize, and one of the things that I would look at, and what I've seen in the documentation, you do a relatively good job with grants. However, we would be more competitive, look in different areas for grants. I work with the Title I director, I work with our professional development coordinator, Title IIA, and also I oversee the English language learners, which is Title III. And what we try to do is take those funds to supplement what our budget is, and is to become. In reference and specific to your question, the time frame to have the discussion with the city government is to me would be ongoing, day to day, that would be the discussion, because I strongly believe that communities, the flagship of the community is the school system, the school department, and how you run your schools, and making sure that businesses know that, you know, this is a good place to bring a business in. This is a really nice place to raise your family. And I would hope that that discussion would be open-ended. And as I said, and as you know, in my political life, a long time ago, being a state senator, you know, we dealt with that at the state level, bringing in constituencies, making sure that the resources that we're using are used appropriately, and they're used for, you know, for students. Everything that I do is based on student needs. What's in the best interest? Is this decision in the best interest of students? It's a difficult road to hoe, there's no question about that. But when you find that common ground, when you're working with people, and then you hit upon it, and everybody's rowing in the same direction, that conversation with city government is ongoing, and it's in everyone's best interest to utilize the funds as best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question is by Mr. Bill Lawson.
Good evening, Dr. Azar. Please describe a situation in your career that required you to perform under highly pressurized circumstances, and what leadership attributes did you utilize in order to successfully overcome that situation?
Certainly. In 2004, I was asked by the superintendent of schools in Taunton to come back to Mulcahy Middle School, where I was previously an assistant principal. Mulcahy Middle School had been identified as a school in need of improvement. They were not meeting their AYP, which is of course is now the PPI. So that's changed over the last year or so. But nevertheless, it was a school in crisis. And I, after serving 3 years in the Exeter West Greenwich school system and bringing that highly successful school district to another level, it was time for me to decide, do I come back to the school that I served as assistant principal for 7-8 years, to take that school and bring it to where it should be? Do I stay in Exeter West Greenwich, where I had a really fantastic situation? It was a school district, high performing, which I wasn't really used to, but we did what we needed to do. So I decided to come back to Mulcahy Middle School in 2004. And the decision that I made was very clear cut. I needed to take that staff and to make them realize that this is important, you can do it, and I'm not going to give up on you. So in a 3-year time frame, making decisions, cutting back on staff, one of the things that we did not do was that we did not decimate the Unified Arts program, because it was very clear to me that disenfranchised and disengaged students do not come to school because of algebra or AP class or whatever. They come for Unified Arts, the hands-on stuff. But also the rigor that we incorporated at that level was just as rigorous as an algebra class. Because what I shared with the Unified Arts people were a couple of things about, you know, keeping people together and focused. Was that this is something that you have to do because it's, number one, it's going to save your job. If we can tie in your Unified Arts to math, ELA, social studies, you know, writing across the curriculum, we can move this building, this school, and these students to where they need to be. But we have to, we cannot lose focus of the whole child, because that is happening, as you know. We're losing focus that the Unified Arts are first to go just because, for whatever reason. But if you can take those Unified Arts classes and you can turn them into something rigorous, which we did in that time frame, those were the decisions that we made. Superintendent had conversations with me about, we have to cut this, we have to cut that, we have to do this. And I said that there are ways that we can combine some of these classes, which we did, to save the Unified Arts piece, which was fine. Let's see what the results look like. Well, after a 3-year program that we incorporated, in 2007, 3 years later, because of those tough decisions and moving that school, we were one of only a handful of middle schools in the Commonwealth, and you can check this out on the DOE website. Mulcahy Middle School went from meeting AYP and absolutely no subgroup, in the aggregate meeting nothing, October of 2007, Mulcahy Middle School met their AYP in every single subgroup and in the aggregate. And those were the decisions that to me, that time frame was so important. I learned so much from that time frame. But it wasn't just me as principal. That's where we incorporated the Student Collaborative Network, where we brought in parents in the decisions. Kids were very much a part of the decision-making process, which to me is like, well, they should be. I mean, the impact is something very influential on their lives for the future. So we were able to take that and just turn the school right around to a point where unified arts were in place. Kids felt good about themselves. The morale was about as high as you can get. And those are the kinds of things that I believe as a former principal, my constituency as superintendent will be teachers, assistant principals. I've been there, I've done that, and done it successfully, and I have that blueprint to show them this is where we need to go. And I will tell you this, from what I've read in what the package that was sent to me, you have those systems in place, and now we take it to the next level without losing sight of the fact that school can be fun. It can be rigorous, but it also can be fun. So. Thank you. Thank you.
Our next question is Franzito.
What are the goals that you set your first 6 months as superintendent of the schools in Attleboro? And what are some of the long-term objectives you would prioritize as superintendent?
Sure. The short-term goals would be connected to the information that was derived from the focus groups. I would take those things, but what I would share with you, short-term goals would be for me to get an understanding of the budget. From what I gather, you have a top-notch business person in this district that I would sit down with in my leadership team to go through the budget step by step and look at that. So to get more familiar with the budget right away to see where we're at. That would be the first thing. Second thing, not that second first, but one of the many things that we would probably be doing all at the same time would be something that you probably did, and in an unfortunate situation, of course, safety plans from each school to take a look at. I've had extensive background and experience in safety plans, anti-bullying plans. We recently in New Bedford, we adopted the OVEUS anti-bullying program, which is K through 12, to make it consistent throughout the district. So I would look at budget right away. I would look at the safety protocols in place. I would also want the school improvement plans from each school, so I could look at, at the ground level what is happening at each school. The reports are nice and everything bulleted, but the school improvement plan is something that is a document, a legal thing that we have to look at to see what the schools are doing. So those would be the most quick things that I would do. Long-term things that I would look at particularly would be, the high school. I'm the point person in New Bedford for NEASC accreditation, and I know a lot of work's been done at the high school. And quite frankly, I wouldn't mind emulating some of the things that Attleboro High is doing right now to bring them back to New Bedford and to work, because we have a competition, and it's unfortunate because New Bedford High School's losing badly, that our middle schools are becoming a feeder program for Greater New Bedford VOC. Greater New Bedford VOC is doing very well. I'll give you an example. Nomandin Middle School, where I was an instructional supervisor, we had a graduating class of 8th graders of 360 students or thereabouts. Over half of them went to Greater New Bedford VOC, proficient and advanced students, MCAS students. That's where they ended up. The other 180 kids went to New Bedford High School, needs improvement, warning, and so on and so forth. And that's a continuum right throughout the last 5 years. So I would, in a long-term situation, I have to look into school improvement. The flagship for any community is the high school. How is the high school doing? And if the high school is doing very well, community more than likely is going to be doing pretty good as well. So I would meet with the administrative team at the high school, sit down with them to bring me up to speed on where they're at as well, and then that would be long-term. 3 to 5 year program, well, what I've just incorporated in New Bedford about curriculum, looking at our curriculum, making sure that we have a plan and a protocol in place to, there's gotta be needs. We look at the needs of whether they're textbooks, what is the curriculum. And being in Massachusetts right now, as you know, we're looking to go from the MCAS assessment to the POC assessment. And I've been in the forefront of all that information, so the learning curves the learning curve will be more about the structures that are in place at each building, but overall the umbrella of what's happening, statewide initiatives. As you no doubt know, in New Bedford, we're in cohort 1 of everything. So therefore, all the new initiatives, we just have to juggle as best as possible. We get more and more on our plate, we just gotta move something over, not off of it, to make room for other initiatives. So I would take that for long-term. The other piece is some long-term ideas about budget, to ask and to work with the mayor and city government to see what is available out there for community and businesses, which I'm sure that you guys have already done, but maybe take it a step further to see what other sources of revenue are out there aside from the grants and what's attributed to us already through net school spending and so on and so forth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question, Mr. Christopher O'Neill.
Dr. Azar, what is an example of a time in which you or the organization you were leading failed to fulfill the objectives you had set for yourself or the organization, and how did you respond and recover?
I would point to the district accelerated improvement plan that we are currently working on in the state, for the state. This dates back to last year because it's substantial. We have our accelerated improvement plan. There are, originally it was about 72 pages. And what we were faced with from the staff, what are the most important pages you want us to look at? Because the 72-page document, we had to scale it back, narrow it down. So our response has been to look at that accelerated improvement plan, because the state wants results yesterday and last week, as opposed to giving us any kind of time frame. So over the past year, we submitted the plan, and they give us the feedback, and we need to do X, Y, and Z to respond to it. My personal, in my role as curriculum instructor for the district, we scaled it back to 32 pages. I would say on the 32 pages, my responsibility as the curriculum administrator for the district, I'm on, I would say, probably 28 of those pages, overseeing what we do. I oversee the directors in the district, K to 12, of all the disciplines. But more importantly, what we did to respond was that we were able to collaborate with our Title I director, Holly Nilsson. And on the site visit, she will be one of the individuals that will be part of that. To share with you that we were able to take Title I funds and hire 15 instructional performance specialists. You may term them coaches, similar to like a coach, that type of thing. And we oversee that in collaboration, that we have trained them in professional development, the WIDA standards. We've trained them in research for better teaching. We've trained them in all professional development venues, how to work with assessment data, Galileo, which we utilize, Dibbles, which I know that you guys have in this district as well. So our response was to get to the grassroots level. What a classroom looks like is more important than anything, because everything flows down to the classroom. And teachers were clamoring for consistency, and we felt as though these instructional performance specialists was the piece that was missing. So we were faced from the state with, okay, how are you going to drive this down into classrooms? So that was the issue. So our report was not going to be accepted. Then we went back, and Holly, myself, and Jane Daly, who's the assistant superintendent. We have an interim superintendent right now. Well, as you know, we're in the process of choosing a candidate for the finalist. But nevertheless, we have an interim in Mike Shea, who happens to be the former superintendent of Greater New Bedford Voc. So it's interesting situation in New Bedford. So we, to respond to that, we were able to utilize, collaborate, find the funding source, and then hire, advertise for 15 instructional performance specialists. And each performance specialist, because as I mentioned before, I oversee the ELL program. Our ELL program, I took it over back in May, and we're making some strides there, but we'll keep our fingers crossed that things are going in the right direction. They also are helpful to SEI staff members, because what it comes down to in every single classroom is good teaching. What does good teaching look like? Differentiated instruction, meeting the needs of the student. When a student's needs are not met, my philosophy is very simply, look at what you're doing. You, meaning the staff member, the teacher. What is it that is not being conveyed? Always be retrospective, look within yourself. And the bottom line for every teacher that we always say is that your main job comes down to one word, inspire. Be an inspiration to those kids.
Okay, thank you.
Our next question comes from Mr. Dave Murphy.
Good evening, Dr. Azar. Conflict resolution is our topic for this question. Please describe a situation from your career in which you have contributed to the resolution of a conflict between individuals, groups, or other entities whose disagreement was impeding or had the potential to impede organizational progress.
Not that the other ones weren't a good question. That one, this is, the Student Success Center is something that I was able to create at one of our middle schools, Normandy Middle School. The Student Success Center was, or is, it's still around, which is a good thing, is a place for disenfranchised and disconnected students. It's not an in-school suspension room. And what happened when we initially presented this initiative, this program, the staff wanted, they were like, wow, this is great. Now this is a place I can send an unruly student. No, it didn't work that way. There were protocols in place. There was accountability on the part of the staff that what steps did you take? And one of the things that we noticed, and when I say we a lot because a lot of what I do is all collaborative. So and very seldom do I say I because it's not going to happen. What we created was it was called Team Best. Together, everyone achieves more, and building educational success together. And the Team Best was a very simplistic thing. It was part of the Student Collaborative Network, which brought the resources that we already have. Didn't cost a thing. It sound, Team Best, that sounds pretty good. Student Collaborative Network, that sounds even better. Well, what is it? It's simple. A teacher's having trouble with a student. They're not connecting for whatever reason. And if there are pods of teachers or teams of teachers, what we said was this at the middle school level. You can bring the student to the Team Best. And the Team Best consisted of myself, who oversaw it, the school's assistant principal, the school's guidance, I don't say the school's, I'm sorry, the student's assistant. It's 1,000 students, so they each are assigned an assistant principal. Assistant principal, student guidance counselor, could be, whatever other resource. If a special needs student, could be their collaborative co-teacher or whatever. And what we said was that we're going to meet on this student. You're going to bring to us a teacher who does well with the student and a teacher who's struggling with the student, tearing their hair out. This kid is just destroying my class and whatever. And we're going to give you 10 to 15 minutes to share with us the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we're not going to interrupt you at all. So assistant principal, guidance counselor, myself, and whomever else, could be the adjustment counselor, whatever. Okay, so they would come to us and they would share with us. Now, it was our opportunity, once they were finished, we would then ask them to leave. They would leave. 10, 15 minutes, okay, tell us what you need to tell us. Then, in a collaborative way, we would come up with a prescription of sorts that we thought would help out that teacher who was struggling. Now, if one of the pieces was that the student, something, maybe this student for social studies needs to go into the Success Center just to give that teacher and that student a break in the action, that would be okay. So in our Success Center, we had a certified teacher, a special needs teacher, who could deliver the content, but we wouldn't do it for more than maybe a couple of days. That, in some cases, didn't sit well with the teacher. Out of sight, out of mind. Students, not my problem anymore. They're your problem in the Success Center. No. We would make sure that there was a pipeline where they, after a couple of days, would visit, and then the student would see them in a different light. Wow, maybe this teacher does care about me. So in the conflict resolution piece, we would work that out. And then some cases, the student might need a 2-week break from the whole pod. Things are just, the wheels are coming off, the train's off the track type of thing. And then we would have intensive, that would be our tier 3, intensive intervention for the student. So we put that in place. But what happened was, initially, teachers thought, oh, it's going to be a dumping ground for kids to, oh, this is great. I got a problematic kid. Success Center wasn't happening. We had set protocols. The onus was on the teachers and the pods and the teams to work with parents. When did the parent get involved? Because there was no way a student was going to go from a classroom to the Success Center without the parent on board. And in some cases, the parents were grateful because there was so much angst at home about this particular teacher or this particular situation. We were a respite for everybody. And also what we decided to do, there's a lot of very difficult stories that come into all school systems, no matter where you are. And there were students that, would come in homeless, just a number of different things. There could be, other things where they've moved in and they could have been 16 years old in an 8th grade classroom. So what we would do is bring them into the Success Center, and if they were ready to go out into a pod and a team and they were ready for it, we would send them in. If they were older, say 50, you don't want a 16-year-old sitting in a 12-year-old classroom. It's just not happening. So what we would do is we would set the Student Success Center up as almost like a college, where, how you get to pick your classes and you get to pick your teachers? Well, guess what? That's what we did with some of the older kids, that we matched their personalities with other teachers. So they could have social studies on one team with a teacher that's like very receptive. Yeah, bring them in. Let's get going here. Or they could be on the first floor with another teacher completely opposite. And that, once teachers realize, wow, this is a pretty cool option for kids. That conflict resolutions, discipline, I wouldn't say it didn't eliminate it, obviously, but it made it more palatable and more workable for everybody. So,
Thank you.
The next question is Brenda Patato.
The Attleboro Public School District has historically had 3 different levels of curriculum: college preparatory, honors, and advanced placement. Over the last 3 years, Attleboro is a recipient of a competitive grant from MMSI. It has increased the number of students taking the advanced placement courses. Please explain how important the 3 different levels of curriculum are or are not, and whether there should be prerequisites in order to take advanced placement courses.
yeah, this is an ongoing battle in almost every district I've been in. Happy to say that New Bedford High School is also part of MIMSI. And just recently, the Standard Times reporter, Carissa Anderson, is now working for MIMSI. She just started working for them, I think, as of a couple of days ago, or thereabouts. She was a reporter for the Standard Times for the education part. She was just hired by MIMSI for PR purposes and things like that. So we're very involved with MIMSI. The bottom line is that there has to be a requisite. There's got to be some kind of criteria for anything that you do. There has to be. But you also want to make sure that all students have opportunities to be part of any program. There's no, or to have access to curriculum, because that's something that I'm working directly with the high school on with the accreditation team for NEAS, because that's what they're going to be looking for, and we want to make sure that it's in place for our accreditation, and it's not in place. It's not in place. If you talk to one teacher, no, only these kids should have access to this. They shouldn't have access to something else. You talk to other teachers, no, you know something, if given the right guidance, the right opportunities, then they can be part of that also. So in reference to your question, we also worked on that at the middle school levels as well. We have one particular middle school right now that offers Algebra 1 classes. The other two middle schools do not. So there's an equity standpoint, there's an equity issue there as well. So we're working on that piece. As far as the curriculum is concerned, every student should have access to the curriculum and advanced placement. That was part of what my response earlier was about sitting with the high school staff to find out, where are we at with the MIMSI vertical teaming. I would imagine that, like you said in the question, that you're part of that process. What is right, what is wrong? I'm at a point where I need to gather more information, quite frankly, to be truthful with you, to find out, because that's what we're doing. It's a learning curve in New Bedford. I'm at that point right now in gathering information. So I can't give you a definitive answer, what's good, what's bad, but I will tell you this overall, that every student, no matter who they are, where they're from, they need to have access to rigorous curriculum. And we're in that process right now of developing model units. The model units right now are from the state, and we're incorporating those model units throughout at the high school and at elementary school that we're piloting them as well. So what we want to do is to make sure that parents are involved in that process, that guidance counselors, students, because we want to make sure, just like anything that we do, we don't want to overwhelm any student. We want to make sure, because we have the AP, the prerequisites for algebra, geometry, and so on and so forth. We want to make sure that they have the requisite skills to be successful, and not just to say that, okay, we're going to put these kids in these programs if they're not ready for it. Shame on us for not preparing them to do well. So I know it's not a great answer, but that it's a truthful one. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question.
Could you please explain, excuse me. Could you please explain the process that you would take to define and set the vision, mission, goals, and objectives for the school district under your administration, and explain what the focus of these would be?
One of the things that I shared earlier was about the fundamental job for a teacher, in my estimation, is to be able to inspire students. I was afforded that opportunity when I was younger. I was inspired by a sixth grade teacher, and I was inspired by a high school teacher. My high school teacher inspired me to become a social studies teacher, which I ultimately became a social studies teacher. And I also was inspired by him to become a state senator. He was the former state senator, and I followed in his footsteps to become the state senator. Just a little caveat, he came back and he defeated me, and that's how I lost to him. I did share with him, I said, Mr. Lyle, I said, I almost voted for you, but, and I think my mom voted for you, but anyways, it's about inspiration. It's about to be inspired, not to come back and, run against your former student. But I don't know where that came into my vision or my mission, but it's about to be to inspire. Mission, objectives, and so on and so forth are always a difficult thing because everyone has a different take on it. And in a collaborative setting, you have to have a committee. You do. I mean, even just the other day, there was a consultant that came in from New York into our district, and she was sharing with us that a school district in New York that she was working with, it took them, I would say, maybe 4 or 5 meetings to come up with a mission statement of 2 sentences. I mean, that's how intense it can get at times. So it's a collaboration. The process would be a very simple one, that you would get input from a district standpoint, from your elementary schools, from your middle schools, and from your high school. You would then reach out to the PTOs to bring on parents, what they think a mission statement should look like. It's not all inclusive, just administrators and so on and so forth. We need everybody, you know, pulling together. We would look at the mission statement that you have currently, and, you know, is there something that needs to be tweaked because of the times are changing. A lot of things have changed. A lot of initiatives are coming forth. So the process would be something that I would incorporate in everything that I do. Bring a focus group together. This is our mission. This is what, you know, this is the charge of the group. This is where we need to be. And then bring in examples of mission statements from other comparable districts that we have. Not to cut and paste or copy, but just see where other folks are basically in the process. While you do that also, and what I've come to find out in that student collaborative network that I've spoken about several times, is that you build capacity. You have built capacity within your district that you don't always have to hire outside consultants, because that's a cost measure. You have people in the district that can do the job. The experts in this district in Attleboro and in New Bedford and in Dayton, Rehoboth, where I live, are the teachers. Every single time I read articles about, you know, this consultant or this turnaround specialist, or, you know what it comes down to? It comes down to listening and hearing what the people in the trenches have to say. Bring them to the forefront. And it's not about just listening to them complain, because eventually they're tired of complaining also. But what are they really complaining about? I want to make sure that the administrators that work with me and myself, we don't get in their way. We provide support, we provide guidance, but we also get out of their way. And then they become, you know, they become invested in the process. So that's how I would handle that piece. Make sure people know that they have a place at the table and they got to be listened to.
Thank you.
And our last question of the night by Mr. David Murphy.
Dr. Azar, it's hypothetical to finish up the questions. If you were to become the superintendent in Attleboro, and on your first day, you were to encounter a parent trying to decide whether to enroll her child in the Attleboro school system, how would you respond?
Take a walk with me. I would find out, you know, what age group. I would tell them these are the options in the district, and I would call whomever has my calendar and say, you know something, I have to cancel everything, depending on, unless it's the chairperson of the school committee, of course. Okay. But your question's a good one. I would do that. I would take them, and I would ask them, what is it that you're looking for? What are you looking for? Oh, that's good, because we have that program at this particular school. Would you like to take some time out? I could make an appointment with them. I could set them up with somebody in the community that could, you know, bring them to where they need to be. So if they're in a particular school district, contact the PTO person, other parents who have successful stories, and to take that parent to share with them, because I think that if they see that the superintendent, who's the face of the public schools in Attleboro, is going to take the time out of his or her schedule to bring them around or get them connected to somebody that can do that, to show them the, you know, what we have in Attleboro, I think that in itself would make them say, you know something, I'm just going to enroll my kid because of that contact. And that's something that I would encourage the staff to do, assistant principals to do, that we have the power to do that. And it comes back to that, to inspire. If someone has a dealing with you and they walk away from you better, then I think that in part is what you should be doing. You know, make their day better, you know, not worse, by putting up roadblocks. And it's been successful for 30 years that I've done that for 30 years, and no one's ever come back to me and said, I can't believe the way you treated me with respect. How dare you? I've never heard that so far. So you never know, though. You know, you see a lot of things. You never know what direction things might go into, but that's what I would do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Azar.
You're welcome.
Great job on the questions. Give me some closing remarks to the committee.
Certainly. What I'd like to share with you is that in my experience over the past couple of years now, I have been in the forefront of a number of initiatives from the state. I'm currently in it's called the OATS training, which is the Observing and Analyzing Teaching. It's through the Research for Better Teaching program. And I am one of many administrators taking that course. I took it 6 years ago as well. And the reason why I'm taking it is because I am one of the individuals responsible for district learning walks. And I have not been in the classroom for a little bit, and this is my opportunity to see currently what things are happening. And it's been an eye-opener and a great experience to work hand in hand with those individuals that are in the trenches day in and day out. I see what good teaching looks like. I see what we have to the look fors, for instance. The district learning walks that we do in New Bedford, we have the directors, myself, assistant superintendents, and we go into classrooms, and we have look fors. We have 4 categories. We have what are known as indicators, and we look at objectives. We implore our staff to have objectives posted or lived. So when a student is in that classroom and you go up to a student and you say, "What are you doing?" And the student looks at you and says, "I'm not really sure. I don't know what we're doing, to tell you the truth." That's not a good answer, because if it's posted, the objective's posted, and we're looking at mastery objectives now, and a student sees that objective and the teacher references it, "Okay, class, remember, we're working on this today. So at the end of this class, you will be able to do," and then they reference it to bring the student back into where they need to be. So we look at objectives. The second thing we look at is teachers that check for understanding. So if I do a simple thumbs up and thumbs down, "Okay, class, is everybody with me? Thumbs up." Okay, and somebody has a thumb up. Most kids will have their thumbs up, but most kids are not where the teacher needs them to be. So what we ask teachers to do is that if someone has a thumb up, follow up with that student. "Okay, Anthony, I see that you have your thumb up. What is it that you can share with the class that is connecting for you?" "Oh, and Anthony, well, I meant," now all of a sudden, Anthony, "I meant to put thumbs down," like that. So it's digging in deeper. So the teacher is able to do a formative assessment, and I see this in action, and we rate it. We rate it as administrators, as providing, okay, it's happening, it's good, things look good. Sustaining, meaning like, this is the real deal. This is the classroom that I want every kid to be a part of. My kids, every kid. Developing is not such a bad thing, because we also see there are look fors. There are different things that we look for. And if it's developing, so, if the teacher made a little tweaks, it would be providing and sustaining. So that's okay. Not evident, that's not good. Okay. So then we go from objectives, teacher checking for understanding, then we go for engaging instruction. Is what's going on in that classroom, okay, turn to page 52, we're gonna do questions 1 through 5. That's not really happening there. We want an engaging, we want student interaction, we want student discourse, we want group activities, we want the attitude of the teacher to be, "This is important, I know you can do it, and I'm not going to give up on any of you." That message, once that message is delivered to kids, just even if many of you probably have your own children, that we don't give up because we're parents. That's a given. But if that message is clear to students, they'll connect with you. And then the fourth indicator is student ownership. I will tell you this, and I know this is a fact in Attleboro and in New Bedford. Our teachers work so hard. They work day in and day out. They do all the work. We don't want them to do all the work. We want the students to do the work as well. So the teacher becomes a facilitator of sorts. It's a lot of work to get there, there's no question about it. But that gradual release of responsibility to have students talking to one another, peer editing, and things like that, and then group work, cooperative learning groups, but not just sit 4 or 5 kids together, and then you look at the group and they're all working independently. That's not group work. It's discourse, it's an understanding. Some teachers don't want to give up that because they feel as though they can't get that control back. And those are the kinds of things. So what I want to share with you is that the district learning walks that I know that you guys have been doing, because I read about it as well, I can get, with the help of the administrative staff, to get you to another level. There's no question, I have no question about that. Probably the more significant piece to the district in Attleboro and New Bedford that I oversee is the Retell initiative. the Rethinking Equity for teaching English language learners. And in that retail initiative, the WEDA standards, and also those WEDA standards have to be connected to all curriculum. There's got to be a piece there because those SEI ELL students will eventually be in a general education class. Those teachers will have to be trained as well under the retail initiative. 26,000 teachers in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts will be affected by that retail initiative. And I'm sure there are many teachers in Attleboro that will be impacted. So what we have to do is to make sure that we have the systems in place to get them the training that they will need. And the curriculum piece that I'm working on right now with my district coordinators is to take those standards, because what's going to happen is you have your set curriculum through POC, and we're aligning to the 2011 math standards for ELA, literacy, social studies, and math. They all have to be interconnected. Right now, I am in the forefront of all that work through the state, with the state. And I think that will be a real plus. I can hit the ground running from day one. And that's where I am right now, professionally. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Azar. Again, I want to thank you for coming to us tonight, and we wish you the best of luck moving ahead in the finalist process. And to just let the public know, Dr. Azar will be visiting the Attleboro Public Schools on Tuesday, March 15th, from 9 to 5. There will be a open forum part, if you will, open discussion part at 4:15 to 5 o'clock at the Attleboro High School mini auditorium. And the school committee will be visiting Dr. Azar's New Bedford Public Schools on Friday, March 15th, from 8 to 2 p.m. I'm sorry, March 12th. Did I just say that wrong?
Visit March 12th.
I'll say March 12th, I'm sorry. So we look forward to having you back in Attleboro, and we look forward to coming down to New Bedford and going through a site visit there. So again, Dr. Azar, thank you very much
Thank
for
you
coming.
very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Nice to meet you, Dr. Azar.
Same here. Thank you.